Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital.
Dean, one of the most important things inside of any business is to get really clear on what the brand story looks like. So imagine, for example, that I take you into a major shopping center. I say, Dean, there you go. There's Nike, there's Lululemon, you got Adidas, you got Puma. Maybe, for example, you got On Running, you might even have Hoka, and you have to go to one of the stores. I bet that you've already got a desire or maybe a ton of bias around where you would go and which ones you wouldn't go into. And somehow you've developed that either through previous experience, perception, something you've seen. Maybe you hook onto the dream about what actually happens at Nike. Maybe you're in a position that you just think literally flexibility is better and that's what Lululemon does well. I'm not sure. But Dean, isn't it phenomenal that we have all of these brand prejudices and biases already built in before we even go and try the experience? Do you reckon the same happens inside of residential real estate? And if that's the case, what actually is a brand story and how's an agent go to build it? Dean, this is going to be a great topic for you. I'm looking for you to fire up. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Look, I think anyone who thinks your brand is just your logo, then you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I guess the issue for our industry is that it's very hard for a brand to get cut through some sort of emotional, consistent connection that means something, because we are living in a franchise world where everybody does run their version of a brand, often quite different to one another. So
exactly right.
So therefore, it is very, very difficult, I think, for the consumer, I think, to tell, to actually identify with a brand story. I think, they certainly look at things like, your colours and your logo, but it's also about what is it that you're putting out there. And I think it starts, in our space a bit differently than it would say for Nike and Adidas and those guys, because I mean that's a physical product, right? That creates a memorable experience. You take it home, you wear it, do whatever, and then you attach a whole bunch of identity to that. You don't do that in real estate. You sort of deal with real estate agents for a particular period of time. When you really need it. So I think that if you, you think about it, I always think about my brand story as being, what's the narrative around who we are and why we do what we do and the way that we do it. Yeah. Because for me, I see the brand story as an enabler for culture and performance.
Yeah, sure.
And because when the consumer comes into contact with our brand, it's coming into contact predominantly with our people. Sure, they have a full digital experience and they have all of that often before, during and after. But what is it that your people do? Who are they? What do they say? How do they connect to your business and brand? Because the way that they represent your business and brand in a particular office is going to say a lot about how people remember your brand and whether they're going to use you again or refer you to somebody else. So I think if you think about how is your brand or your story connect right back to how do you help your team connect with firstly your business around who you are and what you do, and then how do they then go on and then connect with the customers, and are they passionate and are they aligned with what your company values are and what your purpose is, because that's really what I think about when I think about my brand story. It's like, who are we? What are we on about? Why would people want to join us? Why would people want to use us? And how do we deliver that in a consistent way? And I think, and I also want to come back to it, just comes back to your people, right? Because, if your people are not aligned to who you are, then you're definitely going to have quite a significant difference in experience, because, having standards around how you do things, and here are the must-haves because we want the consumer to experience it. But if your team don't buy into that or they don't understand it, they don't understand their part in that, then they're not necessarily going to deliver what it is that you want. And therefore, you don't really have a consistent brand narrative, where the ones that you mentioned before, if I go into Lululemon, I know what to expect, right? But I don't really know what to expect if I go into one particular franchise's office and deal with one particular agent in that one versus another office, and it's sometimes from the same agency.
Same brand. Yeah.
And it's a big challenge for us. So,
and does that come back down to, like, you did a great job in the very, very early days, not that you don't do today, but you did a great job in the very early days. The first time I'd ever seen it, where I think that you mapped all of the different consumer consumer experience points and whether or not it was a happy or it was a neutral or it was a sad moment. And if you remember that, like from the moment of listing right the way through to maybe getting an offer or auction day or whatever those things were, and whether or not that created tension. And I think that like the interesting thing is that you're actually taking people through an experience journey. So if you haven't mapped the experience and then you haven't documented the experience, then it's pretty hard to go and replicate the experience. And that's probably where the industry's got a lot of good improvement to do, right? Is actually saying, hey, great, these are the scenarios and this is actually what you do if it's not going to sell on auction day, or this is what you do if it is going to sell on auction day. So you've actually got some basic experiences around it. And then sure, there's a bit of art and creativity that great negotiators will bring to the table, but the core shouldn't be too different about how we take names and numbers at an open or what we do to encourage someone to bid at an auction, right?
Well, there's a lot of debate about all those little moments, what I call moments of truth, Josh. I remember doing that exercise. Yeah. We went through and it was, again, we said, what was we want the customer experience before, during and after? And where are the moments that sort of like, it doesn't make much of a difference, but there are moments at which that, you know, you want to sort of own that and have a consistent experience around it.
Yeah.
And those particular moments can have a significant impact upon, you know, how the customer feels about the outcome at the end. And it's not just the result, the physical result, but how they actually feel about it. And so there's lots of little things that I think that we tend to miss. And so if you go through and map it and say, well, what do we want our customers to get? You know, how do we want to handle our feedback? How do we do, you know, how do we do all those little parts of the process that separates us from our competition? And I think, you know, like I look at it and I go, all right, well, if I think about our narrative, you know, if you do this well and you think, all right, well, the first thing is, firstly, if you have a good brand narrative, it needs to be something that inspires and motivates, firstly, your people. Yeah, because if they go, yeah, I buy into that and I get why I'm doing it, then they'll go out and they'll actually then, in those moments of truth, deliver the experience that you're hoping they'll deliver. Sure, they might have their own flavour on it, right? Because we're not McDonald's. We know they are individuals and they're all going to have their own style that resonates with different people. But as long as they understand the overarching intention and they're motivated and inspired to do it, then they'll align with what you want to deliver on a brand promise. And so there'll be parts that your team will do. And then there's going to be parts that when you say your team, your client-facing team, but there's going to be other parts that there are other parts of the business that then come together to deliver the whole experience for the customer. And so I think we've got to understand, well, who does what part and who's going to do what part exceptionally well. So the first thing is you need to make sure your narrative inspires and motivates, right? The other thing I think about is, you know, if your team, the second thing is I think if your team has a sense of belonging, so again, come back to your narrative, what is it? Why would someone want to be in your organization? What's the story that says, oh, I actually buy that story? That when I put that hat on, I can feel that, right? Now, there are some brands that go out and if we think about our real estate marketplace, there's a lot of very male-centric brands.
And there's a few female ones too.
There's a couple, yeah, but not many. And so I've found there's a number of those male brands. They actually head out, and I was part of one as well. That was very talk at. Very ego-driven, let us tell you how good we are type mantra and all of the stuff that goes with that, right? And so that's got its own type of personality. And it was quite masculine and high performance and all those. And then you've got other brands that can be a bit softer. So if you actually look at those, straight away, the marketplace is going to perceive those brands very different. One might be a brand that talks at, another brand might be more of a listening and a softer brand. So you can actually have a brand personality in real estate, but it only works if your people understand that. So let's say, for example, we'd say, well, at Dow Jones, we like to be a listing brand, then that then has to underpin how we go into a lounge room and how we actually then conduct that experience for the customer. So what questions are we asking and how are we doing it, as opposed to let us tell you how good we are. Let's actually go in a different way, right? So the way our team handle that in the moment, if they handle it in the right way, then the two things connect. The softness of the brand, more female orientated, more listing, but it 100% requires on my agent being engaged to deliver that experience. So I think that, done correctly, so, it's inspire, motivate, it's attracting people that align to those things that really get excited, and then saying, okay, well, what's that memorable experience? What's that thing you want people to take away that they're going to be an advocate for the brand later and go, I had a really great experience with Josh Phegan because of X, Y, Z. But the problem is that again, you can get disparate experiences within the one brand. Someone else might have had a really crap experience and someone had a good one. So I think it's a matter of making sure that your intention's good and then you're using your brand narrative to establish some sort of authority or credibility, both with your customer, but even in the industry. Like if you think about brand narrative, right? If you think about, there are some brands in our industry and some people in our industry that stand out as having some sort of industry leadership. Yeah. And that's because they've managed their brand in a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're doing things in a particular way that other people aspire to be like. So I think, if you get this right, why you do what you do, and how you do it and who you do it for, it really connects, I guess, your team, your customers and your stakeholders. And it can have a massive impact upon the performance of your business. So I think that there's a significant power in a brand story done well. As I said, I think it enables culture and performance. It's just a matter of then how do you own those moments with the customer to ensure there's consistency of experience.
And I love it. This is a whole conversation that if it's not defined, you can't deliver it. So there's got to be some sort of definition around it. My fear, let's say I went to open up a real estate agency in Double Bay right now, I'd have a look and go, oh, all of these brands are already taken, but these 1, 2, or 3 that I can buy off the shelf aren't. So I'll just go that one, as opposed to actually really understanding where is that going to fit.
How's it going to connect? Where's it going to land? How are you going to make that something?
And so why is it that like Purple Bricks was probably seen as a discounter in Australia, as a fixed fee mechanism versus others that might charge 3 or 4%? And okay, great. So what are you doing different to alleviate the pain points of the customer? So mapping customer experience. So Dean, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but I never offer you a tea or a coffee when you come to Double Bay. I only give you a
Fiji water.
Exactly. So, but you know what? It's consistent, and it happens every time.
I come to expect it. I don't even bring my own water anymore.
And it now makes you feel like you're going on holidays. So that's the brand experience. You know what? It might not be flash, but I can do it every time.